Pre-Calc. This is Miss Tyler, and we're going to go over the Chapter 2 review together. Okay, so we want to start with number 1. We need to find the value if g is at -3. When my x value is at -3, I can plug it into my function and figure out what my y value is. So g of -3, we're going to just plug this in exactly where x is. So I have -3 cubed plus 8. So when I am back at -3, okay, I want to know where am I on my, down in my y. Am I up? Am I down? We'll find out. So -3 cubed is going to give me -27 plus 8, which will give me a -19. So once I plug -3 into my function, I get my output of -19. And you should only write it just like this. Shouldn't have a pair or anything, just the number. So I'm going to be down here somewhere. Right? Now in this case, we're not given a certain number, but we're giving a variable and our number. So again, this is still acting as this if this was f of x. But right now it's a plus 2. So instead of x, we need to plug in a plus 2. Okay, so f of a plus 2 will give me a plus 2 squared plus 3. And just make sure that you're seeing we do need to FOIL this. It's not just a squared plus 4. We need to FOIL that out. Okay, so this is going to turn into f of a plus 2 is going to be a plus 2 times a plus 2 plus 3, which it will be a squared plus 4a plus 4 plus 3. And now we need to make sure we're combining all of our like terms, a squared, 4a, but then there's 4 plus 3. So over here, I'm going to move this over. We will be left with a squared plus 4a plus 7. And that will be our final answer. And our function is at a plus 2. We will then get a squared plus 4a plus 7. So I hope that you guys are feeling pretty confident about that. Next, we're going to be moving on to the domain of the function. And I know that this gets us, but we have to just think about what are we given? Are there any restrictions? If we have a square root, if we have a radical, what can never be under a radical? A negative number. If it's negative, that is going to be imaginary. So we need to make sure this entire quantity under here is not negative. So if it's not going to be a negative number, then it's definitely going to be greater than or equal to 0. If it was less than 0, it would be negative. That will not work. But domain is all our allowable x values. We're scanning our x-axis. We're finding out what's going on with our function, where does it work, and where does it not work. So now we want to get x alone. We want to figure out what x can and has to be. So we're going to add 6 to both sides. So we'll have 2x is greater than or equal to 6. And then we're going to divide by 2. So x is going to be greater than or equal to 3. But again, express your results in interval notation. Okay, so make sure that if you need to think about it as a number line, if we look at this, how we were looking at our inequalities, if this was 3, x is greater than or equal to, so it's going to go this way. So in interval notation, we're going to have 3 to infinity. This would be our answer. All of these values will allow this domain to work. But if we go anywhere less than that, this will not work. There will be imaginary numbers, which isn't going to happen. Okay, so now number 4. Okay, we want to think about, okay, this is a fraction. What can the denominator not be? The denominator cannot be 0. Because if so, then that would be undefined and it's not going to work. So x can be any other value. It could be, a million. It could be negative 5,049. It could be any other value But if this entire quantity under here, it turns into 0, this will be undefined and it will not work. So again, we want to solve for what x specifically can and cannot be. So we're going to have x squared minus 25 cannot be 0. So we'll add 25 to both sides. So x squared cannot be 25. But more specifically, we want to take the square root because we need x alone. So if we take the square root, then x cannot be plus and minus. It cannot be a positive 5 or a negative 5. So writing this in interval notation then, that's going to give us 3 parts. We're going to start from negative infinity to negative 5. Then we can have negative 5 anywhere between negative and 5, 0, 4, 1, 3. That will all work. But then again, 5 won't work. But from 5 to positive infinity, that will all work. So this entire domain will work. The only numbers that will not are going to be a positive and negative 5. Oh gosh. So you need to ask yourself, are there any restrictions? Is there something that will not work if I was to graph this? And again, it's very important that this is not given graphically. You need to make sure you're understanding this because there is a non-calculator part for this quiz or test. Okay, so now we want to find the domain. Again, domain. This is where we are scanning the x-axis. We are going across here and seeing where's our function occurring. Well, here it's going on forever and ever and ever and will keep going on forever. And here it's going on forever and ever. But there's this big circle here. Something's going on there. Or something's not going on there. So a circle is meaning that it's an open interval. It's getting really, 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 really close to 2. But it will not be 2. So our domain is starting from negative infinity until 2. And then it is also starting again from 2 to infinity. So it could be 1.99999, but it just cannot be equal to 2. Okay? And now the range, that is going to be going bottoms, try that again, bottoms up. Okay, we're starting from infinity, negative infinity, and going up our y-axis. So where is our function occurring? So then we got to look over and see it starts right over here at 1. And it goes, those arrows are saying it's going to go on to infinity. And again, it's going to be a parenthesis because this is an open circle. Make sure you keep reading your confidence. All right, number 6. We want to study the graph and then figure out what's going on. We can evaluate this function in a lot of different ways. So first of all, we want to evaluate. Evaluate is meaning this is our x value. So go on to the x-axis at 4. If you were to draw a line, where is it intersecting our graph? It's right here at -2. Okay, so when f is at 4, our y value is -2. So this is basically, instead of just looking at the graph, our first question that we did, we plugged in a number and we figured out what is our y value. That's exactly what we're doing. We plug in, we go over and see, here's our x value is 4. Our y value then is -2. All right, so now we want to look at when is my function, just delete that, greater or less than 0. Okay, so when, this is where we're kind of chunking this a little bit. All y values are less than 0 underneath here. Okay, every single y value under here going from the x-axis down below will be negative. So when is this function negative? Now we're looking at chunks. We're looking at the domain. We want to know what x values. So it technically is going on forever. and ever and ever. So all these y values are going to be negative until we get to here. Right here, at x is at -1, -2. So from negative infinity to -2, my y values are going to be, my function is going to be less than 1. All right, then it's going above. So again, I also want to know where this is too, where my function is greater than 0. When are my y values going to be positive? And that is from -2 to, let's see, it's going above till 3. Then when we get to 3, it's going to go below again. It's going to be our negative values. So from 3 to 7. I'm putting that as a bracket because it is stopping right there. This is going on forever, but this is stopping. And these are open whenever it's crossing. And we want to know, where is f of x 0? So again, this is y is 0. When y is 0, I'm on the x-axis. So at -2 and at 3, I'm at 0. And this you want to put in your curly brackets. You want to know what actual values. So -2 and 3 is when my f of x is at 0. And then what's the domain? We're scanning, starting from over here, starting from negative infinity. So I start at negative infinity, and I'm going to keep continuing until I get to 7. And then my function completely stops, so it's a closed bracket. And then the range, we're starting from the bottom, going on up. So this is going to go on forever and ever and ever. So we're starting from negative infinity. And I'm looking at my y values. We're going all the way up until 4. And then my function stops. So it's going to be closed bracket, parenthesis. And so that's all for the first page. I'll make another video for the next one.